Um, Committee on Judiciary and Hawaii Affairs will come to order. It's Tuesday, February 16, 2021, 2 p.m. And we have a number of bills before us. First, first bill on the agenda is House Bill 314, House Draft 1, Department of Human Services.
Hello, Chair. This is Judy Moore Peterson with the Department of Human Services. I had actually signed up to testify on a different bill that we're also interested in, but seeing as how there's no one else here, we'll stand on our written testimony.
Okay, thank you very much. And that is all the testifiers we have for that particular bill. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. House Bill 310. James Tanabe, Office of the Public Defender.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Seeing that you have quite a few measures on the agenda, I'll keep this brief. This measure will allow psychiatrists and advanced practical nurses to bypass the constitutional provisions established by not only the Hawaii Supreme Court, but by the U.S. Supreme Court. So, I just want to quote the Hawaii Supreme Court. It's the forcible administration of antipsychotic drugs that constitute a substantial intrusion on an individual's bodily integrity and liberty. Therefore, to treat someone voluntarily with this medication, a judicial review is necessary. Otherwise, we'll stand on our testimony and be available for questioning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. HDH Behavioral Health Administration, Department of Health.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Nakashima and members of the House Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. My name is Michael Champion. I'm the Adult Mental Health Division's Medical Director. The department stands on this testimony commenting on this measure, and I'll be available to answer any questions that you may have about the measure. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Connie Mitchell, Institute for Human Services.
Thank you, Chair Nakashima. I would like to indicate that ITES stands in strong support of this bill 310, House Draft 1, and wanted to also address some of the concerns that people have raised since the first hearing. One, the public defender argues that the bill authorizes involuntary treatment based on the opinion of one provider. And we already have situations wherein when a guardianship is granted, that a judge decides that it is based on that particular doctor's determination that the person has lost their decisional capacity and can be granted a guardian. So decisions are made for that person. Also wanted to say that we are actually recommending that the period of time that a treatment could be administered over objection for up to 30 days. This would allow time for an individual to benefit from the treatment sufficiently to, in some cases, regain decisional capacity, but at the very least, to begin medication. I really do believe this is an issue of access to treatment rather than trying to protect someone's civil liberties that have been compromised by their inability to comprehend what their civil liberties are. And then this draft actually has had a surrogate or guardian assessment for the need for that added to it. So it basically helps, again, protect the person's ability, or not ability, but their inability to make decisions. Also, in some other testimony that I did read, people have challenged that the loss of decisional capacity is undefined, but these terms are used in HRS 327E5 about surrogacy. And, it describes what capacity is, and decisional capacity is in essence interchangeable with the definition of capacity. Also wanted to address finally that a couple of other testifiers say that they're not in support due to the inclusion of those with substance abuse diagnosis, and forcing treatment for, quote, mere drug possession doesn't seem to be applicable in this particular situation being addressed, because we are talking about people who, if they have a methamphetamine addiction, could present in the emergency room with psychosis and with mood instability, really render them a danger to themselves or others. And I'm open to any questions as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mandy Fernandez, ACLU. Not present. Kendrick Farm. Not present. Okay, members, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled for this bill. Any questions? Representative Matayoshi.
This is for the public defender. I wasn't clear when you were quoting the Supreme Court where the quote ended. Did the Supreme Court quote include the judicial review portion of your statement?
The Supreme Court, that's not part of the quote, but it is the opinions indicate the judicial review is necessary. Basically, before a patient is supposed to get involuntary medicated, they need to follow 3 factors. It's listed in my written testimony, and I believe only a judge can make that determination. I think this all could be done if it's like if you get an order to treat from, an affidavit by one of the psychiatrists, and the judge could sign off on it, but there needs to be some review. You just can't have a doctor decide on its own to inject a person with the drugs that we're talking about at this point.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree on that one. Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Representative Ward.
Chair, if I could follow that with a question to the public defender. The question is, as Connie Mitchell noted, this is more about access to treatment. Can you get your head around that versus the notion that we are limiting the civil rights of these individuals?
I could get around it, yes. Basically, these individuals, though, before even people that are voluntarily committed, they cannot forcibly inject these certain types of drugs unless they file a petition and get a court order saying it's okay to involuntarily medicate them. I don't think the standard should be any different from someone on the street versus someone that's in the hospital at this point. So there's these steps that are in place under the U.S. Supreme Court cases as well as the Hawaii Supreme Court. So it's just that they need to make sure that the 3 factors are fulfilled, and the ones to decide that is a family court judge or a judge here at this point.
Can I follow that up with a question? When you said it's the same as if you were in or you were not on the homeless list, what's the average age of somebody that's homeless versus those who get in a hospital and get cured and go home and live?
I don't know any of that.
Survival. We're talking about survival rates. You're saying let them stay on the street and they can die younger and more sickly than you're comparing it to guys who go to the hospital and live till they're 70, 80, 90 years old. What's the logic?
I'm not saying that. I'm just basically saying that before you can inject anything to their body, they need to have a court order. It is an intrusion in their body, they have a constitutional right. Whether you guys want to, ignore that, but I think it's at this point, you need some kind of court order before you can take that one step.
So you don't think the government has a right to help people who are helpless? They cannot help themselves. Or
The
do you admit they can't help themselves?
The government can help them if they go through the proper steps. There is process that's been established by the Supreme Courts.
Okay. And how long has that been working for the issue versus access to treatment, as Connie has said? In other
Well,
words, homelessness
The ones
is
that are the ones that are dangerous to themselves or others, they are taken in, they're involuntary committed, and they get treated at the hospital. And at that point, if they refuse to take medication, the Attorney General's office or Queens Hospital will file a petition with the court and get permission to involuntarily provide medication.
okay,
And that system works.
except homelessness is getting worse. And that's the whole point of what our constituents are saying. Hey guys, come on, let's help the homeless, get them off the streets, get them into some situation where they can thrive, at least survive. And that's one of these things that's behind this bill. Okay, thank you, Public Defender. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to House Bill 1284 related to the Department of Human Services. Judy Moore Peterson.
Aloha, I'm Judy Moore Peterson, MedQuest Administrator. I'm testifying on behalf of the Department of Human Services in support of this bill. We stand on the written testimony that we submitted. Thank you so much. I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I have a Department of Human Services, I guess.
That's me. I already did our testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Melody Aduha, Health Committee, Department, Democratic Party of Hawaii.
Aloha, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and members of the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee. I wear several hats within the Democratic Party, so I apologize with regards to the letterhead on this particular testimony. It indicates the Environmental Caucus. I am co-chair of the Environmental Caucus. However, in this instance, I am testifying as the chair of the Health Committee. So please disregard the letterhead on my testimony. I do want to say that the Health Committee supports this bill, HB 1284, but we also would like to add a few other things that could be covered in this bill, and that would be collecting data regarding capitated payment rates and conduct a comparison of the likely cost without managed care organizations, which is what the system is now, is under managed care organizations, and 2, collect data regarding medical loss ratios, including the administrative costs of capitated subcontractors. 3, collect data regarding provider rates compared to rates of other payers. 4, collect data regarding rates of denial of requested services. 5, collect data regarding expenditures by other state agencies on services provided to individuals enrolled in MCOs or managed care organizations already fully responsible for their care. 6, requires state Medicaid agency to conduct independent secret shopper surveys regarding providers. And 7, collect information on individuals that were harmed by the MCO access barriers. And finally, for dual payers, such as state and federal payers, demand evidence that the MCOs are really effectively coordinating between the 2 funding streams. Now, the position of the Health Committee is that we feel that there is substantial savings that can be done if the EUTF as well as MedQuest should transition from the MCO, which is where they're at now, managed care organizations, to that of administrative services only, which means that the insurance companies would just be hired basically for administrative purposes only and not for managed. And the Health Committee is proposing that under this situation, this type of planning, millions of dollars could be saved to the tune, we're projecting, at $175 million from UTF and $175 from MedQuest. So at this point, we do feel that this bill is very helpful, and getting that information would be extremely helpful and in the public interest. Therefore, the Health Committee supports this bill, requests that it is passed, and would request that this committee take into consideration the added other data that the Health Committee is requesting. Mahalo, Chair, mahalo, Vice Chair, and mahalo, members of the Committee of Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you,
that's
Chair.
all the testimony we have on this particular measure. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we will move on. House Bill 796, related to correctional facility and community correction center debts. Max Otani, PSD.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Max Otani, Director of Department of Public Safety. Initially, when we submitted this written testimony, we were in opposition of this bill. But after being, I guess, educated by our attorneys, I'd like to offer a few comments at this point. And if possibly language could be added to identify criteria when public interest outweighs privacy, identify who legally a family member is, and to allow public safety to withhold release if criminal investigation is pending, and finally, allow public safety to redact reports if it could harm or bring shame to the family. If you have any questions, I'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kat Brady, Community Alliance on Prisons.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair and members of the committee. Kat Brady testifying on behalf of Community Alliance on Prisons in strong support of this measure. Actually, HIPAA is about medical privacy, giving someone's name, the date of their death, where they died. That's not medical privacy. That's stuff that's reported in the newspaper. When people are arrested, there's a whole litany of information that gets put out, and the department is never concerned about privacy then. So we are really concerned because there have been cases where somebody was beaten up really badly in one of the facilities, sent to the hospital. The family was never notified. After several weeks, they were notified. By the time they got to the hospital, their son was a vegetable. He was on life support. So they couldn't even talk to their child. And that is why it is really important that this information, public information in a publicly run facility, is available to the public. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, R. Brian Black, Civil Beat Law Center.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Black, Executive Director for the Civil Beat Law Center for the Public Interest. I'll just stand on our testimony with comments noting that the privacy issues that the departments have raised are not issues. This body can decide what is of public interest and make sure that it is available to the public. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled for this particular measure. Any questions? Representative Ward.
Mr. Black, please. Mr. Black, regarding your last statement and in your testimony, you say that HIPAA also does not stop disclosure of information when, quote, required by law, and the use of disclosure complies with and is limited to the relevant requirements of such law. Are you saying if we pass this, then all of these HIPAA concerns go out the window? Question mark?
Yes. So if you pass a law that says that certain information must be disclosed, and the DHHS, when they were promulgating the HIPAA regulations, specifically thought about this, addressed this issue. If you pass a law that says that a certain death reporting requirements must be public, that overrides any HIPAA concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions?
Yes, Chair.
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 Trustee.
Thank you, Chair. Department of Public Safety. So I'd like to know in the hearing verbally, what has been the holdup? What is the explanation to the public for lack of disclosure, or at least untimely disclosure? Because it has been my understanding, for example, there were a couple of deaths in the Arizona prison and a reporter was covering it. The only way he found out that these people had died, much less of COVID, is he has to do a daily refresh of the number of people in prison. And all of a sudden the number went down by 2. And he had to ask, oh, do we transfer them? And it took days to get a response. And finally it was revealed that no, they died. And 2 years ago, this body had passed a law to try to address this. And obviously it's not working. So I'd like an explanation from you, what is going on?
I think the present law right now requires us to notify the governor's office within 45 hours of death. So basically,
24.
20.
Immediately.
Right. I
Thanks,
think it's,
Matt. Let's let him answer.
so we've been doing that. We've been notifying the governor's office, who in turn notifies, I believe, the House and Senate. As far as the situation in Arizona, we normally put out information in the press of a death not identifying. Based on our advice from our attorneys, we're not identifying name. We're giving age range, gender, facility died, and the date that the person passed. Normally, we do not put cause of death until we get a medical examination.
So do you think that lawmakers, how safe or violent situations are that people face when they're under your care?
I beg your pardon, I could
And
not hear.
Do you think that the public or even legislators understand the reality of the situations that people face under your care when they're in state care and may face being the victims of violent crimes? Do you think that the public in general, much less lawmakers, have a generally good grasp on that reality?
I believe some do. Some may not be aware of the conditions in prison or the type of people that we incarcerate. So, it's hard to generalize at this point, but, I'm available.
Right. So if we don't have a good grasp, of that, maybe having reporting requirements that require DPS to let it be known publicly if someone is violently harmed under the care of the state. I think that's an eminently reasonable request to make, because we can't make good policy decisions and the public can't truly understand the importance of treating even people who have broken the law with some semblance of dignity, and not have to face unconstitutional situations where, how does the Constitution word it? Unreasonable, what is it? Forgive me if it's just escaped me, but unreasonable, inhumane conditions, right? And all this is really we're trying to get at is you guys aren't doing a good enough job at this. We've asked you to do a better job. That hasn't been enough. And ultimately, I think it's important that legislators and the public know what kind of situations people are facing so that we can build a better system. if the situation isn't built just to punish, but to rehabilitate and bring these people back into society, we need to know that they're in a situation where they can face genuine rehabilitation
I don't disagree.
and not
with
just
you.
become better
I think I
criminals and better victims.
In reference to this bill, the information that we were releasing was based on recommendations from the Attorney General's office. In my discussions with Deputy Attorney General yesterday, my understanding that if this bill addresses those issues regarding specifically a state law that allows us to release that information, it kind of gets us through the HIPAA issue. The other issue is the issue with the Constitution, privacy versus public information. And if according to our advice, if that can be addressed by stating what is the state's compelling interest to release this information, we should have no problems in releasing this information. And there's other issues such as notification of family. If this bill could also address who is the family member that we address. Because we've had situations where we're accused of not notifying family, but that wasn't the person that was listed as a contact. So if the bill could address those issues, then, by all means, I'm willing to release that information.
Right on. Oh, thank you. And thank you, Chair. And I'm totally open to those kinds of friendly amendments as well. But thank you for answering my question.
Members, any other questions? Now the chair has a question. Mr. Otani, you indicated during the testimony that after reconsideration, the department stands ready to be supportive of the bill with certain amendments. Do you have proposed amendments to provide to the committee?
I have just briefly, and I was hoping that our attorney generals would be online to provide more insightful information, but it was basically, identify the criteria when public interest outweighs privacy.
Okay.
And identify who legally is the family member, and to allow us to withhold or the release of information if a criminal investigation is pending that could compromise the investigation, and allow us to redact certain parts of the report if it could be harmful to the family.
Okay, so I will be prepared to hold decision making on the bill until our meeting tomorrow if I can get information from the Attorney General's office or your office regarding that criteria to include in the budget, include in the bill.
All right, I'll work with our Attorney General's office to get that over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions? Seeing none. House Bill 734 relate to child support. Department of Human Services. The Department of Human Services is currently present. Nicole Wu, Hawaii Children's Action Network.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. We support this bill. It would get some much needed money to custodial parents who also are getting TANF. Currently, the state keeps the money. And we really think, especially now during this recession with families struggling, that they really need this extra funding. 27 states in the District of Columbia already have policies like this, so we know that it works and we know that it can happen here in Hawaii. We also have $352 million in unspent TANF funds as of 2019. That's 3 times our annual TANF block grant. So there's certainly some extra funds that we should try to deploy during this recession when families are really hurting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all of the testifiers we have scheduled for this bill. Members, any questions?
Sure.
Representative Ward.
The last testifier stated in her written testimony as well as verbally that Hawaii had 352 million in unspent TANF reserve funds, which is more than 3 times larger than the state's annual TANF block grant. Can anyone explain why that is so big? Is anyone on the line? I'm not sure if maybe the testifier, Ms. Wu, Nicole?
Yeah, so yeah, I work with Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks. We're a nonprofit, but we have talked to the Department of Human Services about this because TANF falls under their jurisdiction. They have given us different reasons for holding on to the money. It seems like now is the time to spend it though. If they were waiting for a rainy day, it's kind of raining now. But I would defer to them for why they've been putting so much money into reserves. We're second in the nation in terms of having the most TANF reserve funds compared to the annual block grants.
Is the department on this call, Chair? I didn't.
No, the department was not on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Chair.
Do members, any other questions? Seeing none, we move to House Bill 97. Huh? Somebody submit that. So I have Honolulu Police Department. Yeah, nice. Oh, 654 is next.
Great. Yeah, I mean, of course, we got to see what the hell they're actually saying, but I mean, really,
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Captain Kyle Numasaki with the Honolulu Police Department. We stand by our testimony in opposition to House Bill number 97.
Okay, thank you very much. So members, any questions on this measure?
Sure.
Representative Ward.
HPD. Is this the nose of the camel in the tent, and then that it would follow, or that these nonprofit charitable things are benign, but they lead to other things? Or there may be some guys out there who can really kind of jack it up and make it into a big, a huge deal, rather than a fundraising for a nonprofit good cause.
We believe that this bill is too broad the way it's written, because anyone can create a nonprofit, and yeah, we just think it's too broad the way it's written. We would have to work on narrowing it down.
Are there any groups out there doing this now, kind of underground, undercover, so to speak?
Lately, we identified a few, but it's hard to track down. I mean, because it happens so quickly. They conduct raffles illegally.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Short recess. Okay, members, sorry for that delay. On House Bill 654 relating to child support enforcement, the Attorney General did provide testimony. However, they were not scheduled to Zoom in with us today. So then the next bill was 97, which we have heard. And the bill we are currently on is 821 related to historic preservation. We have Alan Dollar, DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Department stands on its written testimony in support.
Okay, thank you very much. Sandy Wong, Dowling Inc.
Oh, yeah, this is not good. You want to go up?
Sandy Wong,
No, not present.
not present. Okay, and then that's all the testimony we have on that particular measure. Members, any questions?
Question.
Representative Nakamura.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Downer. Hi, Alan. I wanted to ask you, what are the counties saying about, have you reached out to the counties and what are the reactions that you're getting?
We have not reached out since the session started. We did talk to staff in the other counties. And at this point, what we're hearing is that none of them feel like they have the resources to pursue this at this time.
So it's unlikely to actually get implemented.
I mean, that's a hard question to answer, but right now I would say nobody is clamoring to move this right now. The upside of passing it now, however, would be that, by the time we get rules written, the economic climate, I hope, will have changed. And what we were hearing, particularly from the county of Maui, and they were the county that was pushing the hardest for this last year. Maybe by then they will have the resources to do something with it. But at the moment, I would say you're correct that there doesn't look like there's tremendous likelihood anybody's going to be, knocking on my door right away.
Chair, I have one more question.
Oh, yes, please proceed.
Thank you. I also wanted to find out, in order to do this, you have to promulgate rules.
Okay.
As we read the statute as it is written right now, in order to adopt, the delegation to the counties, we believe it would require rule writing, yes.
And then do you have the resources to do that?
Look, we're stretched pretty thin, but we do also have a legal fellow. And so if this were to pass, I think that we will have made good progress on the other rules that she is working on. So come July, that, we'll be able to break out some of her time to work on that, yes.
And the other rules that you're promulgating to address the other concerns are being worked on now, did you say?
Yes, we are working on revising the archaeology, the report writing rules, and the process, the rules that govern the actual review process itself.
Is there a timeline for that?
I'll have a better answer tomorrow. I have a weekly meeting with the legal fellow. We are not ready to start the public, the public meeting part of this yet. But I can't tell you right off the top of my head where we are in terms of the drafting of those rules right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions? Sandy Wong. That was the previous bill.
I was here for HB 821. I'm sorry, I'm jumping from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting.
Okay, Sandy, members should go back to House Bill 821, Sandy Wong.
Oh, okay, so I'm here, Sandy Wong, on behalf of Dowling Company. I apologize for any inconvenience I caused you, Chair. So Dowling Company has submitted testimony in support of the HB 821 House Draft 1, and I am available for questions.
Okay. Is there any questions for Ms. Wong?
I have a question.
Representative Nakamura.
Can you just summarize some of the key amendments that you're proposing?
We are not proposing any amendments. We did propose amendments in the last hearing. We are not proposing any amendments to the bill at this hearing. We are happy with the bill as is, and we hope that the committee passes it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay, if not, then we'll go to House Bill 860 relating to human remains. Jay Morford, Hawaii Funeral and Cemetery Association.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima and Representative Mariyoshi, Vice Chair, council members. My name is Jay Morford. I'm president of the Hawaii Funeral and Cemetery Association. We represent primary funeral homes and cemeteries throughout the state of Hawaii. Our position on HB 680 is in opposition of the bill, but I'd like to clarify that opposition. Our primary reasons of concern have to do with regulatory oversight, and ensuring that if this bill should move forward, that the Department of Health and all the regulatory agencies have a clear understanding of these dispositions, both with natural organic reduction and alkaline hydrolysis. Both dispositions are very different. Both the processes are different. And though alkaline hydrolysis is considered a cremation process in the manner in which this bill is being written, it will be used for traditional Hawaiian burials, so the full cremation process is not completed. So we just want to ensure the Department of Health has a good understanding of what remains will be taken from an alkaline hydrolysis facility and where it'll be interred and what the permit process is in regards to that. In regards to the natural organic reduction, which is human composting, we have concerns regarding that disposition due to the nature of the entire process and how much compost is left after the process is completed, which takes around 30 days. There can be up to 1,000 pounds of compost or more. And right now there's no vehicle of explaining how those remains will be spread out or where they'll go into the community. So we stand on our testimony, but want to clarify that we're not in opposition of people having an alternative choice. We're just want to make clear that there's correct and proper oversight over these dispositions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Kavehi Korea, Aloha Mortuary.
Aloha, hi. My name is Kavehi Korea. Thank you, esteemed legislators, for giving me the honor to ask for your support in this bill. I was raised on Hawaiian homes in Waimea on the Big Island, and I currently reside in Kuli'o'o Valley, where my family has been for over 100 years. I just want to address a few of the primary concerns in regards to Department of Health and regulatory stance. I think what I would like to address is, first, alkaline hydrolysis is what this bill is capturing. The data is factual, and it shows that it preserves the bone in the most pristine and best way. It's the most gentle way that any human on this earth can go and be disposed in terms of their flesh and be left with pristine bones. In terms of the Hawaiian burial practices, alkaline hydrolysis is the best technology available for that preservation of the EV and the bones. And for the people of Hawaii, I would just ask you if this was the best way for your family or your loved member to be their final disposition. If the most gentle way is the best way you would choose, I would like for you folks to take that into consideration as well, because they offer two separate and distinct values. It's also the most cleanest way for anybody currently to have their final disposition. It's 75% reduction of the carbon footprint as opposed to the flame cremation. It uses 1/8 of the amount of energy and recycled, and the mercury is recycled and the gas is not emitted. Alkaline hydrolysis is also an affordable option to the consumer, because burials can range from anywhere from the low tier from 5,000 all the way up to 20,000. The average cost of cremation in Hawaii is actually $2,000. And I believe to the consumer, that's exactly where the alkaline hydrolysis would be priced, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 at the highest. So in terms of the consumer is actually benefiting from this alkaline hydrolysis process. And so I just want to take everything into consideration when you folks are in support of this bill, because it's important for Hawaiians and everybody here to have that disposition option. And I just thank you for your time.
And thank you very much. Dean Fisher, Fisher and Associates.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm currently in Minnesota right now, where it's 8 above zero. It's been below zero for the last few days. My name is Dean Fisher. Thanks for allowing me to testify in strong support of the alkaline hydrolysis technology in this bill. I stand on my original testimony, and it addresses most of the Hawaiian Funeral Directors Association's concerns if they'll look at it. I am a licensed funeral director myself with a Bachelor of Science in Mortuary Science from the University of Minnesota back in 1984. I've had the honor of working at the Mayo Clinic here in Rochester, and then I also worked at UCLA, the University of California at Los Angeles, as their willed body donor program directors. In my 37 years of being in funeral service, the biggest change that I have personally seen is funeral homes, the independent funeral home being bought out by these large corporations. And once these large corporations take over, they just keep the name, but they raise the prices and you only get two offerings. You can either be buried or you can be burned. The current burial and cremation practices are way outdated and they're harming the environment. There's toxic embalming fluids, there's pathogens, DNA, and other body fluids that are going into our sanitation system without being treated. Carbon dioxide and mercury are going into the atmosphere and adding to our crisis, our current global warming crisis. So alkaline hydrolysis is a game changer. It is safe, it is sterile. All of the effluent that goes to the drain, there's no DNA or pathogens that are in it anymore. This has a 15-year track history record that dates back to Mayo in 2006. Minnesota was the first state. Since then, 20 other states have approved this, including Washington, Oregon, and California. We had the same problem in Washington and California when I assisted them with the same group called SCI, Service Corporation International. They're out of Texas, and they opposed it there also. And I think the major reason that they're opposing it is change. It's not because this technology isn't a great process. I have personally retired from there, and I have purchased 2 of these units myself. And we are seeing that 60% of the cremation customers are actually selecting this over flame cremation in those areas that we have placed these machines at. We've already reached out. I've helped this group reach out to the Honolulu Department of Environmental Services regarding the effluent that goes to the drain. The machine that they're looking at automatically adjusts the pH to whatever the city requirements and the county requirements are. So it's very simple. I want to quote some stats real quick for you. In 2018, according to Cremation Association of North America, there were 11,552 deaths on your island. Out of that, 8,507 of those deaths were cremation deaths, which was at 73.6%. If 60% of those would have went this way, think of all the mercury and all the carbon dioxide that we would have saved, not even going into the environment. So I think that's very, very helpful. And on top of that, if they all died on the same day and we processed them all on the same day, we would have used 2.5 million gallons of water. Now that seems like a lot of water, but in the world of water recycling, the Honolulu Department of Environmental Services processes 110 million gallons of water a day. So that's 1/43 of one day per whole year to process everybody that would have selected that. That would be all of the cremation deaths there. So I'm in strong support of this. The Hawaiian culture is very deep rooted. It supports stewardship of the environment and respects the earth. And I urge you to support this into law so that Hawaiians have another choice. Thank you very much for your time. And I will be around for questions too.
Thank you very much. Pono Ledford.
Aloha, my name is Pono Ledford. I'm a physician in Hilo. I'm in strong support of this bill because culturally, as a native Hawaiian, this will give me and my family the ability to bury my family members the way we traditionally would like to be buried. Currently, with the flame cremation, the bones that we get back are distorted, they're charred. We don't get that much of the bones back. With the aqua cremation or this alkaline hydrolysis, it will allow us to get that EV, the bones, especially the long bones. We'll get more of the bones that we can actually use to do our traditional burying. As far as effluent and the material that comes out of this process, it's sterilized. This is the same technique or the technology used to do biochemical wastes. So any biochemical waste products that need to get taken care of, it would go in this process. It destroys viruses, bacteria, purons. It breaks up all the protein into its finer components, into more of the basic nutrients, amino acids and salts. So as far, especially with now with COVID, this is a way in which we can safely take care of our loved ones without having to worry about contamination and spread, because the fluid that comes out is completely sterile. So yes, I'm in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hino Wong Kalu.
Aloha mai kako, Chair and distinguished representatives, mahalo nui. I stand on my testimony in strong support of this bill. And further, I'd like to add that when all of us here in this hearing consider to what great lengths the Native Hawaiian community must go to advocate for dignity in death and dying, I think that it is imperative upon each and every one of our policymakers to consider that we should not restrict ourselves simply because of the economic impacts that are perceived to be had. And I say with all respect to every voice of opposition here, naturally, when one runs a business, one's bottom line is how well or how negatively is one economically impacted. And business is a business. But yet the business of dying always promotes the word dignity in death and dying. And for us as a Native people, we must consider what are our options. Right now, we don't have the kind of options that enable us to fully realize our traditional practices. And might I add, it's not only Kanaka that have this practice, but also our, our fellow island people of Japanese descent. I remember staying in Japan and staying at a temple, and I did not know why my sleep felt like I had so many eyes upon me. until the next morning. I called the attention to it, and my host said, and they pulled open the shoji doors, and they said, this is the wall of the ancestors, and their bones were in the drawers in the temple where I was sleeping. And so you see, there are far more than just the Native Hawaiian community that would have greater dignity in death and dying when we consider the opportunity to utilize this process to enable us to continue on in our practices. So I implore you, policymakers, to please consider your support of this bill. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Mililani Trask.
Aloha, legislators, and congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Everyone on the Big Island is so proud of your appointment. I'm here to testify in strong support of this measure. This will be the first time in nearly 200 years that the Hawaiian community will have another option, the option to take the remains of our loved ones and to treat them in a traditional way. We used to build a big imu at the ocean, steam the bodies of our parents and grandparents throughout the night, and then in the morning, take the clean and the sterile bones to the burial caves and the sterilized waters to the sea. But for 200 years, we have not been able to do it. That practice is no longer allowable. But with alkaline hydrolysis, we can achieve that goal. Alkaline hydrolysis has been here in the state of Hawaii for over 15 years. I thank and congratulate the state of Hawaii, University of Hawaii Manoa, for bringing this technology in for their lab testing of animals. And that is being conducted right now in the labs down in Kaka'ako. The Hawaiian traditional way is significant to our people culturally because for many, many years, there's only been two choices, flame cremation or full body burial. Flame cremation does not give you sterile bones. I have been through the process myself, and most recently with the passage of Trustee Moani Keala of Oha, her family took the body to Dodo Mortuary. They were encouraged to go through partial cremation so they could get the long bones. And when we went to get them, you could smell the flesh and you could see the sinew, because flame cremation does not give you the same product that alkaline hydrolysis does, and that is clean and sterile bones. When you go into many of our Hawaiian community homes, especially on the homestead, you'll see a little table in the living room with pictures of grandparents, parents, and sometimes children, and the urns there, because the Hawaiian community cannot afford thousands of dollars for a plot. They can't pay thousands for a casket or for a casket liner in addition to it, but that is not our cultural way. Our cultural way has always been to steam the bones and take the sterile bones to the burial caves where there is no scent, no worry of rodents. Take the sterile waters to the sea. Alkaline hydrolysis is that process, and truth be told, it's been in our state for 15 years, and it's an important part of our state's medical research. Last year, the Will Bodies program came in. They wanted to expand the program at the U of H Jabson Medical School, but they met with sharp resistance from the SCI monopoly, which came to Hawaii in 2003 and bought up Dodo Mortuary, Big Island, Leeward, Nu'uanu Memorial, Hawaii Memorial. These are all part of the SCI monopoly here. They file testimony in opposition, but they don't tell the legislature the truth. We've had this technology for a long time, and it was the state itself that led this. Why do private sector monopolies oppose us? Because they're using the old technology. And if you take a look at the testimony filed by Mr. J. Medford last year, he says, why should we put out the $200,000? Well, Aloha Mortuary is not getting the low-end alkaline hydrolysis, but the high-end private sector will pay this. Aloha Mortuary, their advisors, Ken Ordenstein and Dr. Pono Ledford, who is part of the Hawaiian funeral industry here in our state, they are willing to pay the $400,000 for this unit. It is nothing passed on to Hawaiian consumers. It is of no cost to the state, but it does upgrade us to the technology that's being used by Mayo Clinic and UCLA as they test pathogens. In this day and age, we need a technology that is going to be clean and sterile. We don't want to find ourselves in the position of the United Kingdom when mad cow came there and they didn't know what to do. I was at the United Nations, a diplomat serving indigenous peoples, when the World Health Organization issued its opinion encouraging the United Kingdom and all other states in the General Assembly to utilize alkaline hydrolysis. This is a measure that allows our people for the first time in many generations to do what is culturally appropriate. We follow the lead of the state of Hawaii, beating the drum for mainland monopoly that came here in 2003 to prevent us from applying culturally appropriate technology is not only racist in my estimation, but it is something that strikes at the heart of our community because many Hawaiians still have the urns at home with a photo. When will we be able to take the sterile bones to the burial caves? When will we be able to take the sterile waters to the sea? The time is now, and there's a great benefit to us because if the next global pandemic can be spread by air or by burial in the ground or distribution of waters in the sea, we will be spreading a pandemic rather than preventing it. Alkaline hydrolysis is a solution, and there's no reason to prevent the native people of this land from not benefiting from it. We can use technology used by global leaders. If it's good enough for Mayo Clinic, if it's good enough for our research being conducted by JABSON, I think it's time to allow the Hawaiian community to benefit from it. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mililani. Dear members, that's all the questions. That's all the testifiers we have scheduled for this measure. Any questions? Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mililani. May I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Gene.
It was very enlightening in that I heard this in the health committee, but it never came out as you have testified. There's actually a machine at JABSON that is doing this, using this now.
What happened was 15 years ago, the folks that were doing laboratory research in the vet section learned about it. Apparently, there was some concern that people moving to Hawaii were bringing pets in and they were being quarantined, but there was concern that if they had any type of pathogen that might manifest later, we would not know about it. Well, the JABSON team has been using this technology. It's part of the U of H in Manoa, but the actual facility is the one that's down in Kaka'ako. And yes, they have been using it. But I should tell you also, Gene, that I found out that other veterinarians over the years had brought this in. They get the smaller tank, it's 80 gallons, and they use it for cats, for dogs when they pass. They also use it for animals being that are involved in research for potentially dangerous pathogens. But it's been here, and I feel that it's time to bring it to the Hawaiian community so we have an alternative as well. I have nothing opposed to those cemeteries, the monopoly group that SEI came in Texas. They have an established monopoly, but let's have an alternative for the Hawaiian people so that we don't have to keep the bones and the chips of our grandparents and our children in vases by pictures let us go and do the appropriate thing. We don't want to build the imu at the shoreline anymore. We would like to use alkaline hydrolysis like the rest of the informed worlds do. And I think that it is frankly patently racist that we have the existing cemetery group opposing it for no scientific or other reason.
Ronnie, I have one other question regarding that, the SCI, or I forget what you called the group that owns these. If this, and I wasn't clear, you said at one point it was $200,000 for the machine and then it was $400,000.
There are different technologies for alkaline hydrolysis. You can go with the low end, and this is what Mr. J. Mordford referred to in his testimony last session when he killed the bill. But there are other technologies as well, because technology continues to advance. And I think that one of the reasons why the alkaline hydrolysis technology has advanced is because the world has moved from a position of using alkaline hydrolysis as a technology for regular human burial. They've now moved into the global pandemic threat situation. And that means that we may have people dying before science can catch up to determine if what they died of could be released into the air by flame cremation, or could be released into the soil. And this is why you see the labs, not only here in Hawaii, but also places like UCLA, Mayo Clinic, have been using it for years. But it's nothing new. Veterans in Hawaii used it, U of H has used it, and we'd like to have the opportunity to do the same for our Hawaiian kupuna.
You haven't lost any of your passion. I have one other question, and I want to ask the funeral home people. If it's 200 or 400,000, is that going to be a capitalization that's going to keep some people out? In fact, the ones who are going to do that, assuming that there is a demand for it, won't they be the ones who are, if in effect, going to be utilizing this if the demand indicates it as such?
Well, you know, I have to point out the reality of where we are. 200 years past, none of those cemetery businesses here or those monopolies from the mainland have done it. The top end of this alkaline hydrolysis comes in at $400,000. That is the unit that Aloha Mortuary will bring in. They ask for no legislative funding or support. They pick up the tab as private sector, and they haven't even offered the service to Hawaiians. So they're willing to pay this money at the top end. They don't have a clientele to pass the costs on. They haven't brought the technology in, but they're willing to make the investment now for our people. And I think I congratulate them, and that's why I'm working to help them, because it will benefit all of us and it will not cost the state a cent. This measure has no fiscal ramification for others than those in private sector. And I know that Mr. Medford and his group, the Dodo, Leeward, Hawaii Memorial, they don't want to put out that kind of money. But I'm thankful that we have finally a Hawaiian group that will, and I acknowledge who stands with them. Their advisors are Ken Ordenstein. Ordenstein has been in the funeral business going back 150 years. They passed the ball to the Ledford family, and now we have Pono Ledford also involved. They were previously known as the Woolsey Ohana. So Aloha comes with some very good advisors that go back 100 years. Funeral services in Hawaii, Hawaii companies. That is not the same as the SCI group. Dodo, Leeward, Nu'uanu, they kept their name, but we all know that they're part of the Texas SCI monopoly. We're the only Hawaiian company left in the state, and we would like to service our people in a way that is clean and sterile.
Thank you, Melanie. The passion comes through loud and strong. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Aloha, Gene.
Thank you very much, members. Any other questions? Sensing none, we will move on to House Bill 643, related to emergency management. We have Luke Myers, Haima.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Luke Myers. I'm the Administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. HIEMA offers comments on House Bill 643. We are available for discussion. I would just like to make a couple of comments. This bill is changing some baseline definitions under HRS 127A. If you look carefully at modifying these definitions.
It's very hard to hear you.
Is that better, sir?
Nope. Sorry.
Hopefully that's a little bit better, sir. I'll speak up a little bit if that helps.
Yeah, maybe if you spoke up quite a bit more, that might help.
Okay. Yes, sir. My apologies. This bill is amending some baseline definitions under 127A, and the examples that are being provided inserts comments specifically for the pandemic. Many of the definitions under 127A for the State Emergency Management Program are agnostic, including all natural and human-caused hazards. HIEMA sees little value in adding specific references for the pandemic to these when we have an all hazards set of definitions currently in place, sir. Available for further discussion as necessary. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Michael Kurishima, Honolulu Police Department.
Good afternoon, Chair. The Honolulu Police Department stands on its written testimony in support with concerns. I'm a captain with the Criminal Investigation Division in the HPD. Thank you. We'll be on standing by for questions if needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lavana Loma, for our rights.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to testify. My name is Levana Loma with For Our Rights, a civil rights organization. We have grave concerns about this bill. Beside the fact that HB 643 violates the Equal Protections Clause of our Constitution by creating a class of people to do the dirty work of the government in enforcing unconstitutional mandates and then providing a higher protection for them under the law because they are deemed essential. What we're very concerned about is the alteration of the definition of an emergency. Why would we need to add including a pandemic when the current definition already states that an emergency is any occurrence which results or may likely result in substantial injury or harm to the population? Isn't that what a pandemic is? Well, according to the World Health Organization, who actually changed the criteria for a pandemic back in 2009, there is no longer a need for a widespread death. All you need is a lot of cases in a wide geographical area. It seems to us that this addition to our legal definition is being made because a pandemic is not always equivalent to a true emergency. And therefore, this is the only way to justify continued deprivation of rights. You were very concerned because, when you look at the current statistical data for the state, there really is no emergency in the state of Hawaii, according to our current definition. Yet the restrictions here in the islands that are causing great harm to the people, we've seen great devastation in our community, not so much from COVID-19, but from the restrictions. And this is because COVID-19 is being declared as a pandemic, even though the recovery rate of this disease is actually 99% or 99.9% for some age groups. And so it's very concerning because ultimately a lot of cases of a particular disease does not equate to an emergency by the current legal definitions in our Hawaii state law. By changing the legal definition in our Hawaii laws, we are opening the doors for future unwarranted rights violations and also making it much more difficult for these unconstitutional regulations to be challenged in the court of law. And so we urge you to please consider these facts and not allow this bill to be passed, because we feel that the current definition for a state of emergency, if it says that there would be if the occurrence would likely result in substantial injury or harm, there should be no need to add including a pandemic. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Michael Golush.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Michael Goloyu Jr., and I'll be testifying on behalf of the LGBT caucus today. We are sorry that this bill actually has to be heard, and we are sorry that the need for this bill actually had to happen. As we've seen, there have been those within our community that have not taken their own priority, their health and their well-being of their neighbors at a forefront. And that when we put essential workers back to work with limited PPE, that they definitely do need the support that this bill will provide. Had people just shown a lot more aloha and been able to give them a little extra to take care of one another, this bill wouldn't be necessary. But we definitely do need this with the stories that I'm hearing from our members as well across the state, unfortunately, that we have people that do not understand how bad this pandemic is and what it really means, and the long-term effects of those who actually catch it will do, because we still don't know. Excuse me. The Mayo Clinic has a wonderful page on that, and I encourage everybody to go check out the Mayo Clinic's list of the life-threatening long-term effects of catching COVID-19. And so we should be able to add, we do request that you add this and move this bill forward to protect our essential workers. All righty, thank you and aloha.
Thank you very much. Next, Elizabeth Diamond.
Maybe that's it. Unless somebody's got their computer or audio on.
Not present.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, I think I'm on. Aloha. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of this committee, Elizabeth. Although maybe written with good intention, I'm kindly requesting that Bill HB 643 be opposed, which seeks to introduce so-called essential worker and his or her ability to incriminate someone perceived as a harasser. Here are the reasons. All lives matter. And do you really believe that you and I am not essential? What a government paid official, flower lady delivering roses to be able to feed her children, firefighter or Safeway cashier, we all are essential in our respective duties. And since the beginning of this nation, equal and under the same law, unlike in many other lawless and corrupt governments, we the people all are essential workers with the same constitutional protection under the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause since 1868. And under the same law for the harassment and assault already in existence. We don't have emergency. If you consider data for the total number of deaths for the last 5 years, they are about the same. Practically, there is no pandemic in a sense of mortality. Would you vote yes for a bill that would violate our constitutional legal protection, even for a limited time? Would that not be racist? Pandemic, emergency, disaster was never used in our country to cancel equal protection for all and never should be. Please think of our children and grandchildren and keep our state pono. Please vote no to HB 643. Ao mau ke ao ka aina I ka pono. The life of the land and people is perpetuated in righteousness and justice. Thank you for your time. We all will be accountable for our words and actions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Jennifer Knoll.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Noel. I strongly oppose HB 643, which is really a bill that will violate free speech and will divide our community into essential and non-essential people. We are all essential. This bill will create a group of snitches or brown shirts, allowing ordinary citizens to have the power to arrest people for violating and are voicing disapproval or opposing opinions about emergency orders is dangerous. We already have laws in place to protect people against harassment and assault. This is not just an unconstitutional bill. This bill, if passed, will completely destroy our communities and our sense of aloha. All of you took an oath when you were elected. That oath was to protect the Constitution and to protect the people of Hawaii. Please do the right thing and vote no for HB 643. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Rasa Fulcher there. Okay. Kim Cordry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I am actually very much opposed to this bill. My two simple things that I'm opposed to is, first of all, the violation of free speech, that this goes against the First Amendment. And also, just as other people have mentioned, the distinction between who is an essential worker. We are all essential workers. How can you or anybody declare a specific type of job to be more essential than another? As stated before, every person that works is a necessity to their family, to providing for their needs. So that's why I am absolutely opposed to HB 643. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret Mejia. Thomas. Okay, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled for this measure. Members, any questions? Representative Ward.
Chair, this is a question to Luke or HPD. Some of the metrics, what's the experiential rating out there? What's going on in the community that brings this to the fore? Either HPD or emergency management. Or you don't have any numbers or statistics? How many people have been assaulted, or is this basically about masks and the citations, and they say, you know, I don't like the citation, and they badmouth you? Or how many fisticuffs? I'm trying to get a database. We don't want a solution in search of a problem, is the bottom line here. Anybody, am I on, or is it where I'm just not getting a response? HPD, are you still there?
Good afternoon, Chair. The HPD, like you said, believes the intent of this bill. Unfortunately, I believe that there are other laws in place already that will protect essential workers. So from the HPD standpoint, we don't have statistics on the number or types of crimes that would incur with this bill. We just didn't want to make it a felony, which would then overburden the judicial and court system with felony cases during a pandemic or during a time of emergency. Thank you. I hope I answered some of your questions.
That's very helpful. Luke, you got any incidences to add to that?
Representative, this is Luke Myers, Administrator of Hawaii Emergency Management. No, sir, we do not have any statistics specifically on this bill.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, members. Any other questions? If not, we move to HB 825 relating to emergency powers. Luke Meyer, Haima.
Chair, good afternoon. My name is Luke Myers. I'm the Administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. HAEMA stands on the testimony that we submitted, and we oppose House Bill 825 HD1. We are available for further discussion as necessary. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Remember, that's the only testimony we have scheduled for this particular measure. Any questions? Seeing none, House Bill 686. Relate to critical electrical infrastructure, Department of Transportation, Ed Sniffen.
This is Lynn Araki-Regan from the State Department of Transportation. We stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Kunishima, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Michael Kunishima, Captain in the Honolulu Police Department. The HPD supports this bill and stand on our written testimony. Here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Germs, Hawaiian Electric.
Good afternoon. We'll stand by our written testimony. However, again, I'd like to briefly point out the intent of the bill is to protect life in a way that our traditional fences, cameras, and security guards have not. We're sensitive to the public's right to exercise the First Amendment right of free speech. And that's why we believe the language in the bill protects these rights by stating critical electrical infrastructure does not include support offices, land use for the transmission of electricity, or right-of-way that is not completely enclosed and maintained by the electric utility. Again, this focus is to prevent injury and death by keeping people out of fenced and enclosed areas that contain high voltage equipment, areas that would not be safe for protesters or the general public to enter. Thank you. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you very much. Melody Aduha, Environmental Caucus.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and members of the Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. My name is Melody Aduha. I am the co-chair of the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. We stand in strong opposition of HB 686. As noted in the Democratic Party platform, page 20, it says specifically, we support safety and security in all dimensions as a basic function of government. We support just law enforcement and enhancement of crime prevention without compromising civil liberties. However, I'd like this committee to note that HB 686 provides very high monetary penalties and significant prison terms, which will result in a chilling effect of limiting civil demonstrations and would leave demonstration organizers and participants liable to substantial penalties. Enactment of this aggravated offense will create a chilling effect on the environmental protectors and community protesters' ability to organize civil demonstrations against new and proposed energy power plants, projects such as those that we have seen at the AES Napua Makani North Shore Wind Farm at Kahuku, or Macy at the Huhunua, now known as Hunuola Bioenergy Facility in Pepe Ekeo, or other places deemed as critical electrical infrastructures. We must not create a situation where one's civil liberties are impeded or compromised by overreaching laws. Members of this committee, we ask that this measure be deferred and not move any further. We do not want to see any of our citizens subject to this type of penalties for exercising their right to free speech and assembly. Mahalo, and I am available for questions.
Thank you very much. Members, that is all the testimony we have for this particular measure. Any questions? Representative Lowen.
Thank you. Maybe for HECO or HEI, I'm just wondering if there was an event that like precipitated the need for this bill, because it seems to me like if the idea is to keep people or to increase the penalties for entering enclosed areas, that if there's an enclosed fenced area, that to get into it would already be breaking and entering, which would be a felony, or if there was destruction of property or vandalism, that would already be a felony. So I'm trying to understand what situation this is specifically intended to address.
Certainly. So most often when you simply cut a lock or a fence or cause minor damage to entering a property, that doesn't reach the felony status. And people are aware of that. They're willing to take the chance of entering these dangerous areas to steal copper or other criminal activities. So this higher offense, I think, would help deter those activities. And we do have, in recent history, we've had 3 people die from entering these electric high voltage facilities. So it's not that these incidents aren't happening, they are. In the previous 3 years, we've had almost 80 people trespass into fenced or enclosed high voltage facilities.
And that hasn't been considered breaking and entering?
It's often considered trespassing or criminal property damages, which trespassing is a petty misdemeanor.
I guess those instances that actually happened haven't resulted in felony charges. It's just been a misdemeanor or not been prosecuted?
Either they weren't prosecuted or they are misdemeanors.
Okay. All right. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, I mean, I think that some of the concerns expressed about this bill are really heavily based on assumptions and not the actual language in the bill. However, I'm trying to understand if it's really necessary also. So thank you.
Chair, I have a follow-up
Certainly.
question.
Representative Presti.
Thank you, Chair. Same person. Just reading the language of the bill, because there's a lot of, if you read the testimony for and opposition, it's like 2 different bills. If this is really about protecting people from trespassing and getting electrocuted, or trespassing and doing willful harm to vital infrastructure that keeps civilization running, that's one thing. But what it reads under Section 708A, the property is fenced, enclosed, or secured, but it's secured in a manner designed to exclude intruders with posted warning signs. So it's not enough. So what you had said before seems a little inaccurate, that the way the language is written, it's not just to prevent people from entering secured fenced areas, but if there's so much as a warning sign and you walk past it, all of a sudden it's a Class C felony. Just on that, I have got problems with this. And I'm not a big fan of just increasing felonies for the sake of increasing felonies. People are obviously desperate enough to be stealing copper wire and risking their lives for this. I don't know that this is going to solve that problem. So first, if you could speak to that, the posted warning sign is enough. That's something you're comfortable with?
No, it's not just posted warning signs. So the language is, it's fenced, enclosed, or secured in a manner designed to exclude intruders with posted warning signs. So you actually have to have the warning signs posted.
On the fences?
Yes, yes, sir.
Not just, okay, that's, see,
Correct.
this is, okay. Now, what about I don't know if you had a chance to read the testimony from the previous committee or this one, but there seems to be a lot of concern that this bill isn't about what you suggest, but rather about preventing people from protesting possible energy generation transmission that people may have a problem with. How do you see that nexus?
So I can see where people are concerned about their First Amendment rights. So is HECO. I'm very concerned. And we want to make sure that everyone has a right to exercise their freedom of speech. But exercise outside of the fence where the high voltage is, right? We constructed these fences not just for security, but to protect the public. We're talking about high voltage where people touch the wrong thing, you're electrocuted. You're not allowed to walk around in these facilities without the correct protective gear, as well as some training. So we're talking about facilities and locations that are dangerous for anyone just to walk around. A protester would not go into that area to protest unless they're wishing to become injured.
So in your opinion, would it be safe to say, and I don't know entirely what happened, but like with the windmill protests, for example, people were cited in, it had to do more with public right of way. It wasn't, I don't think it was criminal trespass.
Correct.
That you would still be able to engage in that sort of even civil disobedience without facing a felony, it would seem then.
Yeah, and I would pose to you that nobody was arrested for trespass in those protest situations. Those were, I believe, operations or right-of-way, blocking right-of-way. That's completely different from entering into an electrified facility.
Right. Thank you. And then I wanted to follow up with Ms. Melody Aduha, if that's right, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. So what are we missing in so much of the opposition testimony? It seems like it's a completely different perspective on this, and I don't think it's enough just because it may be written by ALEC. That alone, if it's really about just protecting people from electrocuting themselves, what's the problem?
I think, Representative, it could be expanded or it could be looked upon that way. I mean, basically, my understanding of this bill is that it originated from the Keystone Pipeline protest over there. And as a result, of course, you don't have the same boundaries, but I mean, those people were seriously injured in their protest rights as well. So I feel that it's just a really overreaching and unnecessary at this point. I don't want to cause any risk of any protesters exercising their rights, and this appears to be a way in which it will inch towards that direction. So especially like, for example, Huhunua, that's another one too, where subject to a lot of protest. We just want to be able to have people to exercise their rights without any risk of serious types of Class C felony in this case.
Yeah, it's a serious felony. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Pau, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other questions, Representative Lowen?
Sorry, really quick follow-up for HPD, I guess. Maybe just a similar question to what I asked HEI. Just if people cut a lock and break into a fence facility, is that accurate that that's not a worse charge than trespassing, or that's not a worse act than trespassing?
Well, for HPD, if you cut any fence line, then there's criminal property damage. And once you enter into any other facility, then you'll be criminal trespassing upon their property. So there are laws in it, but you know, the HPD stance is if there's a fence line, there's enough signage to document that they shouldn't be in there, and it's able for us to enforce the law, then the Honolulu Police Department will enforce the law. That's it. Thank you.
People inside of a fenced area and the lock on a gate had been cut, for example, but you didn't have video evidence that, you could assume it was them maybe, but you didn't catch them in the act of cutting the lock. Would you be able to hold them on charges greater than trespassing, or would that be the extent of it?
Yeah, that would be the extent. We would need the property owner to make a statement that those people weren't allowed within the fenced-in area, and we would need them to determine that they were criminally trespassing for us to effect an arrest.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Representative Ward.
Just a follow-up question too. I believe it's the testifier. I think it's Hiko. Hiko, when you said 3 people entered and died, what were they doing inside of that high voltage area, if I may ask?
Those were attempted theft of copper. And that's not unusual. We've had several times in the last several years where someone have broken into these facilities and by just pure luck cut live wires and were not killed or seriously injured. Those 3 specific ones were all copper theft.
Okay, I thought they only did that along the freeway. That's serious. But it seems as though this bill would be related to something like a terrorist of sorts. Have you ever had terrorists threatening to you guys, or something you can publicly say?
Well, I wouldn't go along with this bill associated with terrorists, and I'm unaware of any recent terrorist activity.
So you're saying you just want copper thieves to stay away?
We'd like anybody attempting to commit a criminal act to stay away, as well as the general public to realize that it's a serious offense, a serious matter to enter these facilities. It's dangerous, and they need to stay out without the proper authorization, training, and PPE.
Okay, other than copper thieves, who has tried to penetrate your perimeter or your fences?
Well, we've had numerous ones where we couldn't identify. I couldn't tell you what their purpose was. Fortunately, they've been scared away and they've, run back into the shadows. We've had ATVs stolen. We've had vehicles stolen. It's cost thousands of dollars just to repair the fences. Not to mention the amount of money we spend on security guards and camera and technology to keep people out of these dangerous areas.
So if this bill passes, that'll save you guys a lot of money, and the rates for residential rates will go down. No, sorry, that was
Wouldn't that be nice?
I wish it was the case. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, members.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, move on to House Bill 1377 related to citations. Ed Sniff in Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. We stand on our written testimony in support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And members, that's all the testimony we have scheduled before the committee. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. House Bill 971 related to the expedited agency hearing. DHHL William Ayla.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Tyler Holmes, Deputy to the Chairman, on behalf of Chairman Ayla, who is currently in our monthly Hawaiian Homes Commission meeting, will stand in support on our written testimony, noting again that this was modeled after the Hawaii Public Housing Authority's admin rules. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. Members, any questions? I have a question. DHHL. Can you please give us some context for needing this bill?
Sure. So as it's currently written, in order to have a contested case hearing for our lessees, the hearing itself needs to occur on the island in which the offense occurs in order to give the beneficiary the opportunity to be present. That makes it very difficult, particularly when criminal activity is occurring, when drug cases are occurring, because if the next meeting for Maui is not occurring until the end of the year, it seems unproductive to wait 9 months to get to the next Maui meeting in order to address a drug house or a gambling house and wait that long. So this bill essentially gives us an opportunity to address it as rapidly as possible in order to improve public health and safety.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions? Okay, then if not, we will move on to House Bill 565 relating to divorce. Kevin Morricone, Judiciary.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Makayoshi, and members of the committee. We stand on our written testimony. I'm here on behalf of Senior Family Court Judge Christine Kuriyama. I will also be available for questions if committee members have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Angela Mercado, Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Not present. Okay. Okay, members, that's all the testimony we have scheduled to appear before us. Any questions? Okay, sensing none, we will move on. House Bill 1018 relating to lay nets. Brian Nielsen, DLNR.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. We stand on our written testimony in support and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Inga Gibson, Pono Advocates for the Fishes. Okay, not present. Remember, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled to appear before us today. Any questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to House Bill 1276 related to state parks. Kurt Cottel, DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand in strong support of this measure and express gratitude for you hearing it and for the introducers of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, that's all the testimony we have on this particular measure. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. House Bill 779 related to pesticides. Phyllis Shimabukuro Geyser, Department of Agriculture.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify on this measure. My name is Greg Takashima, Acting Pesticides Program Manager with the Department of Agriculture's Pesticides Branch. We stand on the department's written testimony strongly supporting the intent of the measure and are available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Alisa Malafuti, Crop Life Hawaii, America.
Hello, Chair. We'll stand on our testimony offering comments.
Thank you very much. Brian Miyamoto, Farm Bureau, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Chair, did we skip a bill?
Yeah, I thought I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll go back.
Let's go fishing.
I'll go back to that. Okay, Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Oh, Nicole.
Yeah.
Brian Nielsen. It's Brian Nielsen. For 1023.
No, I didn't go back.
We're on 779.
779, Brian Miyamoto.
Thank you, Chair. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Hawaii Farm Bureau strongly supports Part 1 of HB 779. This pesticide disposal program will go a long way to support our farmers. Chair, we respectfully disagree with Part 2, which would increase the administrative and criminal penalties. We believe those penalties are sufficient right now to deter our pesticide violations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Emmanuel Zibakalam, Hawaii Crop Improvement Association.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee. Emmanuel Zibakalam here on behalf of the Hawaii Crop Improvement Association. We'll stand on our written testimony in support of the intent of this measure and defer to the larger agricultural community in regards to Part 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, remember, that's all the testimony we have scheduled for House Bill 779. Any questions? Okay.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
I did put in a testimony.
Yes, he did.
For
779.
I do not have it. Okay, Mr. Kubo, please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much for letting me testify. HB 779 in strong support of the whole team. When people say that people do not violate 2, 3, 4 times, meaning the pesticide violations, yes, they do. I have, well, I would say this, ask the Department of Agriculture on multiple times that businesses, companies, corporations that did multiple times violate. Thank you very much for your time, and mahalo for letting me testify. Aloha.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, members, any questions on 779? Okay, if not, then we go back to (1023) relating to non-resident recreational marine fishing license. Brian Newson, DLNR.
Aloha, Chair. The department stands on its written testimony and support available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Inga Gibson, owner advocates for the fishes. Present. Okay, members, that's the only testifier we have scheduled for this particular measure. Any questions? Representative Ward.
DLNR, what is the estimated amount of revenue that this might bring forth? Any figure?
Thank you, Rep. Ward. So yeah, we did do some projections on possible revenue. There's a variety of assumptions. First, we assumed about 53,000 non-residents would apply for a fishing license per year. And we also projected a license fee of $20 for a day, $40 for a week, $70 for an annual, and that would bring in about $1.3 million a year to the state. And then with our federal matching dollars, that could potentially be matched 3 to 1. So it could be a significant source of revenue for the department. Thank you.
And the cost to implement it, any projections on that?
Yeah, so we estimate about $400,000 just to get it up and going. That's to create a complete online licensing system so that it's easy for visitors to access the license without having to go into the department or something like that. And then after that startup, we're looking at about $100,000 a year to keep the program running.
Good. You guys aren't thinking about a local fishing license requirement, are you?
There was a bill introduced by Rep. Tarnas for a all-inclusive resident and non-resident. There was quite a bit of opposing testimony, so he deferred that bill. But we would certainly like to keep the conversation going and see if we could get local fishers on board with that, because it would be a tremendous benefit to the state, not only for revenues, but for data collection and just overall management of our fisheries.
I hear you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Ward.
Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Do 1276. Vice Chair. Vice Chair. Did we do 1276? I don't think so. We did state parks.
You're on 1344.
Okay. House Bill 1344 related to the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. William Isla, DHHL.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. We stand on our comments on this bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Homeilani Sheadell. Okay, not present. Members, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled for this particular measure. Any questions? Representative Nakamura.
For DHHL, Director Ayla, I just wanted to ask how many new or projected agricultural leases are you currently working on?
The total number of applicants for agricultural land, is that the question?
Well, I saw that in your testimony, quite a few on all the different islands. I was just wondering, what kind of project, do you have any project in the works for agricultural leased lands?
We do. We have projects on the Big Island for a new category of agricultural land called subsistence ag. In the Honomu area, we have on the island of Kauai, we have in Anahola, Upper Anahola, we have Kuleana leases that we're in the process of master planning, which would allow for agriculture. The waiting list for agriculture is actually fairly long on each island. It's a matter of us obtaining funding so we can put in basic infrastructure, then we can award agricultural leases. The concern that we have about this bill is that there are many, many folks on the wait list. And so increasing the minimum size on ag lots would possibly reduce the amount of land for agriculture awards going into the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay. If not, we go to HB 1391 related to the Hawaiian Homes Commission. William Isla.
Once again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, the department strongly supports this bill authorizing independent counsel.
Thank you very much. And Homeilani Sheadell, still not available? Yeah. Okay, members, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled for this particular measure. Any questions? Representative Nakamura.
I had a question for the Attorney General, but they're not on the line.
I'm sorry, Chair. This is Craig Iha with the AG's office.
Oh, do you want to testify then?
I'm sorry, if it pleases the Chair.
Yes, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Craig Iha, Deputy Attorney General. The department opposes this bill for the reasons outlined in our written testimony. I do want to note that HRS Chapter 28 already has a procedure for agencies to retain independent counsel. And in fact, DHHL does utilize this procedure and has retained independent counsel in the past without any incident. Most notably, the Nelson litigation, DHHL has independent counsel representing them in that case.
I have a question for DHHL.
Okay, DHHL.
Yes.
So given the Attorney General's comment just now that you are able to, is there a reason why you feel this bill is necessary?
First of all, let me say that we are appreciative of the advice that that the Attorney General's office gives us. Many times, the department/commission's interests do not align with the state's position. That is the primary reason why we come to the legislature year after year seeking independent counsel. So it would be, I think, much more appropriate for a state agency that has, and a commission that has certain jurisdiction over issues to have the option of having independent counsel. There are many functions that the AG's office performs for us where I do believe that we've testified in the past that we would have no problem continuing that relationship with the AG's office. However, I think the answer is many times our interest conflicts with the interests of the state of Hawaii.
So when you have asked for independent counsel, when you feel that your interests conflicted, have you ever been denied?
We have not to date been denied.
Or is it a long process to get that approval? I'm just wondering.
It has been longer during COVID, but just if I go down the list of agencies that have independent counsel, I mean the auditor, the ombudsman, the insurance division, the University of Hawaii, the Hawaii Tourism Authority. There's a campaign spending. There's a list of state agencies that for example, the university that has a certain autonomy to it. Similarly, the commission of the Hawaii Department of Hawaiian Homelands, the commission attached to it, has a certain amount of autonomy listed to it. So that's the primary reason that we keep coming back and requesting this opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, sensing none. House Bill 753, related to school impact fees. William Myla.
Thank you once again, Chair. The department strongly supports this bill, and I would just note that we have many charter schools on DHHL lands that are on DHHL lands gratis. So this is an attempt at reverse revenue enhancement. It's a way to reduce outgoing costs that then can be applied to the creation of additional lots to be offered to homesteaders.
Thank you very much. Edward Ige, Department of Education. Tamia Machika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii.
Also not present.
Okay. Okay, members, that's all the testimony we have on this measure. Any questions?
Chair, I have a question.
Representative LaPresti.
I guess I can only ask Mr. Isla. I have general problems with getting rid of school impact fees, and especially out on the west side, there's a lot of Hawaiian homes being built, and you may know, sir, that we already lack major school infrastructure. We have 3 of the largest high schools in the state that are bursting at the seams, and we have the fastest growth in the state out on the west side of Oahu. And this, I just feel, is going to exacerbate that issue. And I mean, the kids are going to need schools to go to, and I don't understand the justification, because it's got to be paid for one way or the other, either through the state paying for it up front, which hasn't been happening, and the only real genuine revenue stream has been school impact fees. So I don't really understand. I guess you have a different perspective that you have to look at it from, but what would your answer be to that concern?
Well, I recognize the concern. we have children going there too, but we also have a fiduciary duty to the Hawaiian Homelands Trust. And so monies coming out of the Hawaiian Homelands Trust that don't go to the development of additional homestead lots to remove people from the wait list, I guess, would, from our fiduciary standpoint, would be a higher priority. Also, given the fact that there are many charter schools that already receive substantial benefits from the gratis leases that they're getting.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess reasonable people can disagree on this one, but I certainly appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? If not, we go to House Bill 847 related to the Office of Administrative Adjudications. And we have no testifiers available for this measure. Next, House Bill 1055 relating to highways, Fawn Yamada, DOT.
This is Lynn Araki Regan, representing the State Department of Transportation. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. We stand on our written testimony and strong support and are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, are you also representing Jay Butai?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, that's all the testimony we have available on this particular measure. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we go to House Bill 1220 related to charter schools. Daniel Gluck, Hawaii State Ethics Commission. Yvonne Lau, Hawaii State Public Charter School Commission.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for your opportunity to provide comments on House Bill 1220, House Draft 1. We've submitted written testimony, and primarily there's 3 areas that we wanted to offer comments on, 2 of which create some challenges for the commission. The first area regarding, I think the House draft added language that would allow the commission staff to provide technical support to prospective applicants. And as you know, the staff work for the commission, and oftentimes we review these applications and provide our recommendations to the commission. So to do that at the same time, provide technical support to the applicants would be a conflict. So we bring that to your attention. Second area is the bill seeks to allow members of an associated nonprofit organization to serve on an applicant governing board. And I believe that that raises issues also of conflict of interest. And so, I think the Ethics Commission also shares our concerns, and we've had some issues in the past with some of our schools, and they've actually issued a guidance letter explaining some of the challenges. Lastly, I think there's some proposed changes made to 302D13 regarding the process for applications, and we're actually asking to streamline the process even further to address a lot of the concerns that have been raised in this bill. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Hey, thank you very much. Rana Boone.
Aloha, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and committee members. Thank you for your time today. I'm speaking to you in support of House Bill 1220, House Draft 1. My name is Rana Boone, and I am the co-founder. I'm representing Maui Academy of Arts and Sciences, which is a proposed charter middle school for the North Shore and upcountry areas of Maui. I grew up here in Haiku, where the only free public middle school at that time is still the only free school option for the 10,000 families that live here in the North Shore and upcountry. As a 2-time applicant in the Hawaii charter school process, We have yet to make it through the extremely cumbersome process. I support all the recommendations within the bill. For those of you who may not be familiar, the Charter Commission has had only 2 complete application cycles in the last 5 years, and no new charter schools have been approved in that time. In the most recent application cycle in March of 2020, there were 12 applicant groups present for the mandatory orientation meeting. This meeting reviews the entire application process from beginning to end. After this orientation meeting, applicants are not allowed to reach out for any technical support. Last year, this orientation meeting lasted less than 1 hour to cover an application process that takes several months to complete and results in hundreds of pages of charter application materials. Of the 12 applicant groups that applied last year, 11 groups were rejected on technicalities at the very first step. This was just the letter of intent phase. 11 applicant groups, including my own, weren't even allowed to complete the formal application due to these minute technical issues. House Bill 1220 allows for applicants to seek technical support for areas of the application that are not clearly explained or outlined. My last point that I'd like to speak to is the issue of nonprofits being able to apply for a charter school, and for some of those nonprofit board members to sit on the school's applicant governing board. This practice is the norm across the continental US, where there are hundreds and hundreds of charter schools. I worked at many of those schools on the mainland. If our Charter Commission and the Ethics Committee is concerned about conflicts of interest, there are definitely solutions. For example, it's possible that we could allow nonprofit board members to start the charter application process and put all the necessary components into place prior to launching a successful charter school. The Charter Commission currently recommends that this pre-opening phase takes a full 2 years before the school's doors open to students. 2 years is ample time for the applicant governing board to put necessary steps in place to launch a successful school. Almost done here.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to just finish that. Once those steps are put in place, but before the doors open and before the school has been funded with any state funds, those nonprofit board members could roll off the board so that the operating governing board could come into place, and that would eliminate the conflict of interest. We are now in a time with COVID-19 where charter schools and all of these innovations should be more welcome than ever. The Charter School Commission has a role of being facilitator for excellent schools, and I believe that HB 1220 will bring about many of the changes we need to improve not only how the Charter Commission operates, but also the application process for those of us who are trying our best to get these quality schools in place for our students and communities. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled for us on this particular measure. Any questions? Representative Nakamura.
Question for the charter school, Yvonne Lau, please. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Representative.
The concern that providing technical support, and I think I'm hearing different versions of it, and it sounds like applicants want questions answered, maybe, and it seems like do you not do that? Do you not provide?
We do provide, in fact, we require a mandatory orientation session. I think some of the challenges with chartering in the state of Hawaii is that we are different from the way our mainland colleagues charter schools. Our state chooses and has decided that charter schools are part of the state and they are all state agencies. So with that, it is different. And that's why there's a distinction with the nonprofit status as well. But we do require a mandatory orientation session. And there are a lot of things that our public charter schools have to do because of that distinction that they are state agencies. So a lot of the challenges that we face are things that are required of, they are considered public schools. They operate, many of the compliance requirements are similar to what the department has to have. And so a lot of the challenges that we face chartering in this state is having prospective applicants understand that it's not quite as it's not the same as our colleagues on the mainland, where they are mostly independent nonprofits that have a contract with the state. And I think our constitution prevents our state from making them, private nonprofits that can operate as public entities. So that's part of the challenge. But I think a lot of the struggle that we had this year with our RFP process stemmed from the fact that we had released the RFP, or our applications process, and then we had COVID hit. And our commissioners wanted to preserve as much as possible the folks that were in place, and decided to suspend the process. And if you understand the way an RFP works, once you release the RFP and it's in motion, you really cannot talk about the process once it starts. And it is a process. Normally it would be a couple of months where we would release the RFP, we have mandatory orientation, they would write their application, we would bring them, they would turn it in, we would review it, we hire external reviewers as well. They review that, they come in for an interview for capacity. So it is a very long process, but it's also because we are authorizing entities to become state agencies. So, I understand definitely the applicants this year were very frustrated by the process, but again, this is not something that this was not a situation that happened in the past, because we were able to run RFPs smoothly and, to the end of it. And right now the RFP is actually suspended. So we have a number of schools that are in that process, but we're not able to move forward because of the financial situation. So until we start that up again, it's difficult for staff to talk about all of the ins and outs and what happened and all that, but that's part of the challenge. So that's what happened.
So if there was some language added that would provide technical support prior to the issuance of the RFP, would that be okay?
So I guess the term technical support is just, that's the problem with the term, because I think if it's an orientation session that explains that, we do that.
Yeah,
now,
I think that beyond an orientation session, but just being able to ask questions. If I'm working on an application, I have a question.
Yes.
A little bit of guidance. Is that it? Are you able to do that?
They can contact our staff. There is one person designated that can answer those questions, but I will say yes.
What is the term used to do that? If it's not technical support?
I think, well, the way that the statute is written, it says any technical support that would influence or come into decision-making that would impact the decision-making on a prospective applicant. So if I can explain that many of the charter organizations on the mainland have networks, have community groups that provide, how do I start a charter school? And in our state, we I don't know if they're still in existence. We used to have a charter school network, and they were the ones that would help prospective applicants. They would advise what to do. And at this point, I agree, there isn't anyone there at this point to assist with that. But commission and commission staff can only answer up to a certain point. I think some of the challenges with the language in the proposed bill is that in the process, staff would have to provide technical support so that they could fix their deficiencies. Like, that starts to get really difficult to, separate the conflict. So, I think we offered the amendment to the proposal that basically simplifies the process. There is anyone who wants to apply for it can apply. It's one step. We review all of the applications. We make the decision. We provide them with the process. We outlined specifically in any denials what the basis is, and they are able to appeal to the Board of Education. And that's how it's always worked.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Great. Members, any other questions? If not, then we go to House Bill 1245. Related to fireworks infractions. Elisa Malafuti.
Good afternoon, Chair. White Hogs and Popoki is in support of this bill, and I wanted to specifically show why these are the two citations from the police reports that I filed when I witnessed illegal aerials going up in my community. And I will tell you, very disappointingly, the first officer didn't even know the law and took my police report and then refused to do anything. He said he was going to go cite the property, and he actually just left. He never came back. The second one is actually not going to court. I just looked it up today. They're not even going to court until March 1st. This was on Christmas Day. I mean, part of the problem, I hope the police HPD is going to testify on this bill, but there's no hammer. We've had illegal fireworks and aerials in Neva Beach every single weekend since New Year's. And I'm not talking about nice, pretty little aerials. I'm talking about the bombs, the mortars. Every weekend, I don't even know why they're doing them anymore. We just had them Friday night. So I would say any bill that would to expedite this process, we need a hammer. If these guys know that they got to show up in court and that there's a fine attached to it and there's criminal penalties, maybe we can start, cracking down on this stuff. But right now, HPD, not only do they not know the law, they do very, very little to enforce the laws on the books. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, that's all the testifiers we have scheduled for this particular bill. Any questions? Okay, sensing none, we will recess for decision making. Recess.
That's right.
Okay, members, reconvening our hearing. First bill is House Bill 314 related to mandatory reporting. The State Procurement Office was fully against this measure, and so we will defer this indefinitely. House Bill 310 related to health. The bill is defect dated, and the chair's recommendation is that we delete definition of imminently dangerous to self and others from section 334-161B and move it out. So, Vice Chair.
We're also adding up to 30 days on page 4, line 4, so that the involuntary treatment for that section cannot be in perpetuity.
Okay. Members, any questions?
Chair, question. I'm not sure I understand. If you take out the imminent danger, is there anything left of the bill then?
Well, we delete the definition of imminent danger from that particular section because it is defined in the larger statute.
Okay, so it remains in the core, imminent danger to self or others. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Members, any other questions or concerns? If not, as amended, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 310 HD1 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ichiyama?
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi?
Yes, with reservations.
Reservations. Representative Lopresti?
Aye.
Representative Lowen?
Aye.
Representative McKelvey?
Aye.
Representative Nakamura?
Aye.
Representative Takumi? Excuse. Representative Todd?
Aye.
Representative Tokioka? Excused. Representative Ward?
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, House Bill 1284 related to the Department of Human Services. The bill is effective dated. The chair recommends technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1284 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 796, Chair was inclined to defer the matter. However, because of the testimony by Department of Corrections, we will wait and try and wait and receive their input on this bill and defer decision making until end of agenda tomorrow. House Bill 734 related to child support. The Attorney General recommends convening a study group to examine the impact, costs, and impediments of allowing child support payments to pass through TANF to recipients and submit a report to the legislature prior to the next legislative session. Chair's recommendation is to defer this measure. Any questions or comments? Okay. House Bill 654 related to child support enforcement. I'd like to adopt the AG's recommendations on page 1, lines 8 and 9. The phrase unsupportable, unenforceable until paid in full should be underlined because it's new language. Modify page 1, section line 3 to 4, underline notwithstanding section 657-5 and the other laws to the contrary. And every judgment for child support are enforceable until paid in full. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 654 as amended, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 97, members, there were no testimony in support for this measure. We'll defer the bill. House Bill 821, House Draft 1, relate to historic preservation. Chair's recommendation is we pass it out and adopt the OHA amendments number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 821 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. HB 680, House Draft 1, relate to human remains. Chair's recommendations, we delete references to water cremation throughout the bill as it is synonymous with alkaline hydrolysis. On page 5 and 6, delete the term water cremation, cremains, and ashes, and the definition of cremation equipment. On page 11, line 11 and 12, amend language to read mortuary, delete or crematory, hydrolysis facility or natural organic reduction facility. Bill is already defectated. Members, any questions or comments?
Chair.
Representative Ward.
This is still a bit new without that much regulation. I think until I learn more about it, I'm with reservations.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 680 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members and the reservations of Representative Ward. Any other members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. House Bill 643, House Draft 1, relate to emergency management. Members, on page 3, lines 1 to 6, we want to change references to another person, other persons, or persons to essential worker or essential worker as appropriate. On page 4, line 11 to 13, insert language that defines the term emergency period as during an emergency period as that term is defined in section 127A-2. Bill is already defectated. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 643 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no?
I'm a no vote.
All right, no vote for Representative Kobayashi. Any other members voting no?
I'm a no vote.
Representative Ward, no vote. Any other members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 825 related to emergency powers. On page 1, line 13, and page 8, line 1, change operate to operation of. Other technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Bill is already defect dated. Members, any questions?
Chair.
Comments? Representative Ward.
Chair, we have a pandemic, but we're not under martial law. I think this goes a bit too far. And HAIMA themselves say, hey, we don't need this. We've already got this covered in other areas of the gubernatorial powers. So I think this is piling onto something that doesn't need to be piled on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1 or House Draft 2 as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 825 HD1 with amendments, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no?
No.
Noting the Representative Ward, no. Representative Kobayashi, no. Any other members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 686, House Draft 1, related to critical electrical infrastructure. Members, in AG's testimony on the Senate companion, Senate Bill 612 before Senate Judiciary, the AG recommended an amendment to Section 708-811, burglary in the second degree. Number 1, a person commits the offense of burglary in the second degree if the person intentionally enters or remains lawfully in a building with intent to commit therein a crime against a person or against property rights, or B, the person intentionally enters or remains unlawfully on a critical electric infrastructure which is fenced or exposed in a manner designed or enclosed in a manner designed to exclude intruders with posted sign warnings stating private property, critical electrical infrastructure, HRS 708-800, no trespassing, end quote, and the person recklessly disregards a substantial and unjustifiable risk that the property is a critical electrical infrastructure with intent to commit therein a crime against a person or against the property rights. Any questions or concerns? Representative Nakamura.
It just seems that the testimony that we received was not really on point to the issue that this bill is trying to address. With 3 deaths and the issue of stealing the copper theft, it's really a health and safety issue, not a First Amendment rights issue. So I'm just going to vote in support.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions or concerns?
Sure.
Kobayashi.
Thank you, Chair. So, particularly based on the testimony from HICO, I had the same view as you, that there were kind of a dichotomy of views on what this bill was all about. But I really didn't hear anything out of HICO to really make that point that this is really about copper sales. I mean, it seemed apparent to me, obviously, there's a First Amendment stifling that's going on. And as a result, I'm a no vote on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions or comments? Representative Lopresti.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with the previous speakers that there was reading the testimony, it looked like 2 different bills. And just in principle, I'm generally opposed to just creating more felonies. But I don't see the nexus with First Amendment and protest. So I'm just reservations for now. And maybe people can educate me further either way. Thank you.
I don't think you're wrong, Representative Lowen.
In my reading of the testimony in opposition, it just seems like it's largely based on speculation about what the intent might be rather than the actual language in the bill, and fears about how it might get amended in the future rather than actual language in the bill. And right now, as I read the bill, it makes, I don't see any major concerns with it. So I'm voting in support.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. As amended, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 686 HD1 with amendments noting the no vote of Representative Kobayashi and the reservations of Representative Lopresti. Any other members voting with reservations? Any other members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. House Bill 1377 related to citations. Chair's recommendation is to pass it out as is. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, as is.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1377 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 971 relating to the expedited agency hearing. Chair's recommendation is to defer this matter. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, I'm sorry. Seeing none, moving on. House Bill 565 relating to divorce. Chair's recommendation is technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. And we defect date this to July 1st, 2021. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 565 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1018 relating to laynets. Chair recommends technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style, and notes that the bill is already defect dated. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1018 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. HB 1023, House Draft 1, related to a non-resident recreational marine fishing license. Chair notes it is already defect dated. Chair recommends passing out as is. Members, any questions or comments? Vice Chair, as is.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1023 HD1 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 1276 related to state parks. Chair will note the blank appropriation and defective date. Chair's recommendations moving out as is. Members, questions or comments? Vice Chair, as is.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1276 HD1 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 779, House Draft 1, related to pesticides. Chair recommends technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style, and notes that the bill is already effective dated. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 779 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, House Bill 1344 related to the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. Chair is concerned about the impact that this will have on the wait list and recommends that we defer this measure. House Bill 1391 related to school impact fees. The chair will note that
Different bill, sir.
Oh, it's wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. 1391 related to the Hawaiian Homeless Commission. I'll note that the bill has a defective effective date, and we'll recommend that we move it out as is. Members, any questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair, as is.
The chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1391 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 847 relating to the Office of.
It's going to be wrong. I'll just leave this here. Put it right here.
Oh.
Does he have the right amendments then?
Yeah, short recess. moved it forward. The bill does contain a defective effective date. Members, any questions or concerns? Not, Vice Chair, as is.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 753 HD1 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations, Representative Lopresti. Any other members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. HB 847 related to the Office of Administrative Adjudications. Chair's recommendations, we defer this matter. House Bill 1055 related to highways. Chair recommends technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. And we'll note that the bill is already defectated. Members, any questions or concerns? If not, as amended, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1055 HD1 with amendments, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay. HB 1220, Chair's recommendation is that on page 4, lines 16 to 14 be restored to its former form. That any consultation made between the school and the staff be only in the first round prior to the application process continuing. I think there was one more.
I think that was yeah.
Oh, and on the boards, the boards should not be commingled and should continue to be separate. Members, any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair with amendments.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1220 HD1 with amendments, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 1245, House Draft 1, related to fireworks infractions. Members, in Chapter 132D, there are current references to this chapter. And, excuse me, and I'd like to change the references to this chapter to this part. Other technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. The chair will note that the bill already contains a blank appropriation and effective date. Members, any questions or concerns? If not, as amended, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1245 HD1 with amendments, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no?
No.
No from Representative Kobayashi. Any other members voting no? Chair,
With reservations.
reservations for Representative Ward. Any other members voting no or with reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, we move to previous bills on previous agendas. House Bill 1138 relating to abuse. Chair's recommendation is that we defer this indefinitely. HB 1366 related to firearms. Members, we'd like to amend this bill in Section 5 that this act, upon its approval, shall take effect January 1st, 2022, at which time any person found in possession of a firearm receiver wealth, proper serial number, or any combination of parts from which firearms having no serial numbers can be readily assembled shall be guilty under this chapter. So what we are doing is we are making the law effective a year and a half later to allow people who are in possession of these parts to have them registered or to get rid of them. Members, any questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1366 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations, Representative Kobayashi. Any other members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? No for Representative Ward. Any other members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 1096 related to parentage. Chair's recommendation is that the Department of Health should convene a working group, including the Office of the Attorney General, a family court judge, a representative of the group, a firm, and other resources that will assist in the drafting of new statutes. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, as amended, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1096 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, HB 98, House Draft 1, relate to aquatic resources. Chair is recommending that we adopt the Ocean Tourism Coalition's language regarding Amendment to 1878, any equipment, article, instrument, aircraft, vessel, vehicle, vessel, business record, or other asset in the fishing possession or sale of aquatic life in violation of this chapter may be seized and shall be subject to forfeiture according to the procedures set forth in Chapter 712A. Members, any questions or comments? Not, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 98 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. It's been a long day. We are adjourned.